Good morning. This is the weekly VOLTHA TST meeting. What is today, the 16th? Okay, so let's see. We can jump into a few items. If there's anything new to add in the agenda page, feel free. The release has been ongoing since last week. We did run into a small problem. Here and I were just talking about it. So one of the ONOS components, the SADIS component, was built with two different versions of the faster XML JSON Jackson library. In go.mod, the package is referenced, but it's different versions were used for two different different pieces. I apologize here. I'm just trying to. One of them was Jackson data bind. What was the other one? That doesn't really matter. So we were going to try and rebuild the library with the latest version of Jackson, just to get everything up to the same version, which was 2.15. That process takes more than 15 hours to push a new versioned artifact out to Maven Central, where we can start running the jobs. After we got version 5.12.0 of the SADIS artifact pushed out, the test job that Mahir ran failed. So we're now having to roll back to version 2.10.2, I believe it is. So we're rebuilding SADIS again, and we're just going to have to wait the delay, or for the delay to propagate out. Is my background still visible? Like the yellow highlight banner on the screen share disappeared. Okay, well, we can keep going. So I've started setting up for the prior releases. We were keeping track of that release matrix, which had all of both the repositories, what versions they were built, links to Garrett, links to the artifacts, all that fun stuff. We were keeping it in the wiki server on opennetwork.org. We had problems with the pages that were lost a while back. So, and the server's been reporting a 502 gateway. So I moved the content that I've been accumulating for release. There's a GitHub repository right now. Well, there's a link to it in here, and this contains I'm jumping around today. So this contains links to the Garrett patches that are being run through jobs to do a base build to make sure that the repository is in a good state before we try to release it. Subsequent patches to tag and branch the repositories, update the Go module versions, all the dependencies and things like that. So the status of the artifact or the repositories that have been tagged and released are tracked in here. We've got the obvious problem that anything that's dependent on SADIS right now, and there's some testing. Was it might have been BBSim. The downstream releases are going to be blocked on getting the SADIS component up and running too. But there's going to be work going on around this while SADIS is rebuilding. Also, just FYI, I've gone in and deleted all of the stale VOLTHA 2.12 tags. The v2.12.0, v2.12.0, VOLTHA 2.12, and the 2.12 beta and prototype tags, they're all gone right now. So we're starting from a clean state. Just some extra things. There's a link on here to the VOLTHA release notes. We'll need to update the tickets that are in here, and for the components and the artifact versions, I'm literally going to transfer everything from this GitHub page over into the VOLTHA docs page. So that stuff is all visible. And let me see. I'll stop wandering around here. There's also a repository or not a repository. There's also some documents under the how-to section. I've been starting to add more content to how for the steps involved for releasing each of the individual repositories. So that'll be available as a reference too. Let me see. So we have the JQ, the Jira JCL queries to look for the open tickets. I've also got a set, they're not in here yet, but I have some additional URLs that you'll be able to query for Garrett patches eventually too. So we can keep track of what's not in and all that fun stuff. So with that, are there any questions about any of this? Okay, with that, I guess the floor is open if there's anything anybody would like to add.
So I can maybe jump in here and give a quick update for the ongoing debugging of this Zyxel OLTs. So the Zyxel OLTs, OLT and the ONUs. So from our side, we've been trying to look into which of those pieces are working and which are possibly broken or not working as expected. So far, we have played a bit or basically tried a couple of different transceivers, switched the transceivers between the ONUs and the cabling and stuff like that. There's a bunch of different scenarios that we tried. In the end, it looks like none of the pieces is necessarily broken by itself, but there might be, so basically if you see the loss of signal on one of the ONUs and then switch the transceivers, you see the loss of signal on the other ONU. But then again, if you switch the ONUs, the loss of signal switches again. So like you can basically recable a lot of stuff and switch the ports and things and like. But in the end, you can get every ONU that we have there into a state where it does not show a loss of signal. So it might not necessarily be the cabling or the transceivers themselves, but it might be the configuration. The question really is how we can get a better understanding of what the required configuration is and how we can debug that. I guess Burkhard basically suggested a bunch of commands to try to figure out the state there. The Python part doesn't work because there's not necessarily Python environment. It's a pretty old ONL. I tried to get a bit more information in regards to the transceivers with ONLP dump. Sadly, this is also only throwing errors. So I assume the ONL version on that is either old or broken or not properly initialized, which kind of fits again to what Zyxel, when we asked them, like basically last year was saying. So yeah, there might be a bunch of different things here to look into, from like debugging the ONL and ONLP itself to how is the initialization done? Does the open OLT package on it actually work and initialize anything or not? Up to do the transceivers, are the transceivers supported? Are they properly initialized? Do they work? And then the combination with the ONUs and the configuration for all of those on top. So yeah, I assume we can spend a lot more time on that, and the next couple of steps, at least as discussed so far, would be looking again at the models of the transceivers. I'll give a feedback on that in the debugging channel on Slack that we have. We can obviously switch those, and then if anybody wants to update, change, or switch any of the software pieces or configurations, please let me know. We can also try that. Björn said he has also like a couple of debugging methods and a colleague that could maybe assist us there. There's obviously the option to talk to Zyxel about that. We can try a different ONL version and see if we can install that. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different options, a bunch of different paths that we can go down here. The underlying problem from my side, or from my perspective here, still is we have no idea if this ever works. We have no idea if the hardware, the OLT hardware itself, is working or not, or could possibly be working with this combination. So we also don't know if there is any possible combination where this could work. So it might be an indefinite amount of time for debugging here, because there might not be a solution to the problem. But yeah, so as said, we will continue doing that basically on this time and materials basis until, I guess, the end of the month, when this part ends. And if there's any suggestions, any specific directions to look into, please just let me know.
So yeah, is this part of, well, maybe we could step back or higher up. So, I mean, is this part of the TT workflow, or you know, and what is this needed to get the release done? I mean, has the TST made a call on that?
Yeah, so this is specifically something that Mahir asked for, to move the multicast issues that we have been seeing in the TT pipeline forward. So the other tests, when multicast is excluded for the Turk Telecom pipeline, seem to work. But it seems that the Sercom ONUs might not support this multicast scenario. So the idea was to see if the Zyxel ONUs may be supporting those, or we could maybe get those things to work. And yeah, this is all focused on the TT test scenarios and getting the multicast part of that to work. I think for the release, it's not important anymore. If I remember correctly, Mahir said last time that we can do the release without that, but we should still do the debugging or continue the debugging for future releases. Please, Mahir, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, correct. In the last meeting, we decided to go with the release without these tests, because all the parts of the software seems to work correctly. The configuration seems to done correctly on ONU and OLT, but still we don't have the multicast packages in the ONU, and we think that it's probably because of the ONUs we are using. That's why we decided to go with the release without this test.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess the way I think of the lab and pieces coming to the lab is there should be a subject matter expert who owns a piece, bringing it in and bringing it up. And it kind of feels like in this case, there isn't such a person or an entity or a company. I mean, who owns this if you were to consider this coming in for certification into the lab?
So this question would be towards me. So I would agree here. So I think it would be good to have somebody that understands the like correct configuration of the OLT and the ONUs, so, and knows that the hardware pieces are at least physically not broken, and then like knows which path to go. For the current state, I don't think we have anybody that could fulfill this role. I think it was just like a shot in the dark, basically, to see if, since the Sercom ones are not working, maybe we can get the Zyxel ones to working. And yeah, I mean, as I said, we can continue that. From my side, there's still the same thing. The suggestion would be to not work on OLTs or ONUs where we do not have anybody that actually knows how to configure it, or if those combinations could possibly work. So I guess, like, from the EdgeCore side, we established this contact and continued a bit with the debugging here, and we also get some help from Netsia here to continue that, obviously. From Atran, we would have people that could assist us in doing that. From Zyxel, we currently have not continued this part. if we would want to continue this path, I think it would be good to establish the contacts, try to work with Zyxel on this thing, because they must know how to and which version to put on that and all of these things. So I think it would be good to like do this part. And then for the ONUs, it's kind of the same thing. We would need to like talk to Zyxel. Is this like something that you think would be working? Do you think the configuration is correct? All those things, and then we can move this forward. Because right now it's really like trying to find a needle in a haystack with a blindfold. It's a bit, yeah.
So Mahir, is this configuration or working in a Netsia lab or in the Turk Telecom lab in Ankara?
I'm not sure about the, ONU versions, the software versions on the devices, etc. But probably the Zyxel device, OLT device, that is probably the same device we have. If it is, I mean, Burak can help for some of these, issues, at least debugging and helping with the configuration. I think he and Jan was, they were talking on the issue. But other than that, generally, I mean, it's good to have someone always, I mean, from the vendor that support us with their devices. But I mean, if we cannot get help from the Zyxel and we cannot get, we don't have any connections with anyone with the Zyxel, then yeah, Burak can help with some of that. As Jan said, he asked get some configurations from the Zyxel and logs from the Zyxel OLT to check the problem. But this, does not mean that we will, perfectly will get rid of this situation. But I mean, we can help, Burak is ready to help.
So I think like the big question from my side here is more, are we continuing to tackle this problem from this side basically? Because so far, I guess the entry point for the debugging has been, let's try to get this pipeline on top, and then let's try to get this working somehow because we need multicast to work. There's obviously the other side where which is a bit closer to what Hyman talked about, is like if somebody would bring this in for certification, you would start from the baseline of like, is the ONL version on this thing the correct one? Is the OLT physically working? Is the open OLT version on this the correct one? Can we see the full initialization process? Are the transceivers properly received? Is this the configuration fitting for the transceivers? Can we get an ONU to run? Is this ONU, has this ever been certified or tested Zyxel internally? Because both devices are from Zyxel, obviously. So then we would like, you would go through, they would basically go bottom up instead of like starting from the pipeline, right? We never verified any of those lower things. And we're now basically at the point where, since we ran out of options, we dig deeper and deeper and deeper and go to the ones like, okay, so maybe the transceivers are not the ones that we want, or not initialized, or, but since we never verified any other pieces, it's a bit of a chaotic thing right now. Since the release is independent from it now, we might be able to take a step back and consider, is this the main priority right now? Do we want to continue working on Zyxel? If so, I think we can definitely talk to those people again, because they offered help. So we can definitely like just email them and tell them, here, this is our current issue. Would you like to set up a call? I mean, I can set up a call with those guys. And then we can see how we go from there. But this was not our approach so far, because I guess the important thing was this Turk Telecom pipeline.
The things that you said, the verifications, I guess some of them has done before, because as far as I remember, this Excel ONU and OLT is connected to this OLT. They were working previously, you know, two release back. I think we had these tests. So it's not totally not verified, you know, but currently we have the problems anyway. I mean,
So,
I agree that, you know, to the things that you and Timon, you know, pointed out, you know, yes, we definitely need, you know, someone to, you know, check any device that we received, you know, its initial commissioning, etc. You know.
so maybe we could just take a higher level view as well. So is there anything else we're expecting of or need from the lab in order to complete the release?
No, we don't expect currently.
All right, well, that's good. So so there's no blocker there. So I don't know. So I guess the question is whether to continue to work on this or whether really Netsia / Trip Telecom should be bringing this configuration, you know, more completely documented into the lab rather than hunting and pecking to try and figure out how to make something work. What do you think, Mahir?
I don't know, Timon. I mean, if it's only if you know that it's because of the configuration and if you parameters in the configuration, then okay. But you know, we currently don't know what's the problem, if it's about the configuration or not. So the configuration parameters we have and we use, we can, you know, provide them to you to Yanor community. You know, that for sure that's no problem in that. But I'm not sure if you. I mean, if this is. This will be, you know, fixed with a few configurations that we provide. Even we don't know which configuration, you know, causes this. So we can provide the configurations that we're using currently, but other than that, I cannot say that, you know, it's because of this configuration, and if you change this way, and it will be fixed. No, this is not the case actually.
Also, there's the configuration, but I mean, how about all the hardware components? I mean, for this, what's assembled in the lab is, you know, do you have an equivalent assembly in your labs? Or is this a unique configuration, unique combination of components?
Sorry, couldn't get the question. There was a background noise.
Just the combination of hardware components, maybe firmware versions as well, that are running in the lab that Jan's trying to get to work. Do you have that equivalent combination in your lab?
I can check. I don't know. We have Zyxel ONUs and OLTs, but I don't know if they are the exactly same versions, same models. We can check. I mean, I'll. Yana, I think you and Burak, you were talking on the Slack on VOLTHA TST channel, and he got the OLT version and ONU versions. I mean models. So I'll check with them if we have the same on Netsia's lab.
So we have not yet been at the point where we have been talking about the OLT versions or exact ONU versions or stuff like that. I guess there's also different revisions of all of those things. As said before, I mean, we can definitely go into that direction and really start bottom up, and then like try to do like more systematic approach of like looking what is the hardware revision that we have here. Basically the same thing that I did the last time, I think, with Serpent for the edge core ones, of like looking at the logs of BAL and stuff like that, of OpenOLT. Can we see the ports being initialized correctly and stuff like that? We have not done those parts basically yet, because been trying to work on this very high layer of like Turk Telecom pipeline. But if we take a lot of steps back and try to start bottom up, I think that might be good. And then we could also compare if this is the same stuff that you have in your lab.
Okay, Jan, let's do that. Open a task and put all the configurations, all the ONU models, OLT models, the software versions on them if you have, all the information that, so that people can, check and logs any if you have. So we can check the status of the jobs and logs and configuration, etc. on this task, and we also let people to suggest new configuration or any other thing on that task. Okay, so let's use this task as a pool of information, so we can open this task to Burak or other people that can help with.
Okay, so
I previously I checked the logs of the job, the Jenkins job. I mean, there wasn't crucial errors on the logs. It seems that the OLT run correctly, but there was a few ports failing, but the ports that the ONU connected initialized correctly, etc. So I couldn't find the error around the problem, but we can, as I said, we can put the links and logs onto this task so the other people can know that which log is related to the failure and which Jenkins job is about the failure, etc. And they can reach to these sources. Okay.
So as I said, we can definitely do that. I just want to be very clear. Doing this and working on the Zyxel OLT is something extremely specific and only useful right now for multicast testing for this one Turk Telecom pipeline, and will not help us in any way with any of the other issues that we have been discussing throughout the last half year. So I'm fine continuing into this direction. I just want to point out this is a very, very specific direction, and might actually assist us in any of the other bigger topics that we have been discussing. But I'll open a Jira ticket and put the logs and stuff, and then we continue with the Zyxel debugging as you said.
Okay, I mean, this is not only about the multicast issue. I think because the Zyxel OLT, there is a combo PON OLT we have. We also do the XGS PON tests on this OLT, and we can use it for combo PON tests in the future. So it's a part of the lab. That's why it's also important for me. It's not only the multicast test, but currently, yes, the multicast tests are a bit, ahead of other things. But
okay.
Alternatively, if we give up with the multicast test and Zyxel OLT for a while, so what's the next you're planning to do? Alternatively.
So there's two answers to that. One answer is like the Zyxel OLT itself would be a pretty good addition to the setup, as would be the Atran OLT that we discussed a couple of times, or the other edge core OLT that we have. to get the Zyxel OLT into the setup, at least from what we discussed with Zyxel half a year ago, they would be willing to assist us, but the last time they tested was a very long time ago with VOLTHA 2.9 or 10, I don't know anymore. They have some testing protocols from their lab, but they said that they did not test that in this community lab, but as said, they would be willing to assist us there, but it would be different enough, again, like it would be starting by talking to Zyxel about like, how can we get this whole thing upgraded? How can we get open OLT build, stuff like that? And then the other answer is a bit more into this long-term thing. We have been discussing this offer that we basically gave for how to move this project forward since, I don't know, August, September, something last year. I think still open discussions on that. And there's still this big thing about like, we can try to patch things up here and there for now, but this is really, yeah, applying a bit of glue here and there and not helping in the bigger picture, at least from our perspective, because a lot of the stuff is, as said, in the old, unmaintained, not supported by vendors or anybody, and has not been working for a very long time. And I don't want to like repeat everything that is also like in the offer and that we have discussed in multiple meetings. But the next steps here, continuing in the direction of applying glue and patching, are not necessarily useful for moving this project forward, but are really just patching and gluing and those things for a very short-term thing. And if we agree that the release is done and we want to look forward to the next release, patching and gluing might not be the best path forward, but it might be a good time to think about the next big step to actually fix those issues that we've been discussing for such a long time now, instead of fiddling with very, very individual things here and there.
Okay, and got it. I mean, and noted. I mean, the offer you have given, it's not in our hands, so we will wait for it to be decided.
Oops.
Sorry, I was on mute. So is there a way to, I mean, does there need to be a decision to go forward with the whole offer to be able to make, forward progress? And I guess I would imagine then you're kind of ripping things apart and restarting something. So you couldn't just work on it for a month, make forward progress, and leave the lab in a stable state if the work were to stop. Or, could, Jan, you be continuing to kind of drive towards the end state that we would hope to achieve at the end of the offer, over the next few weeks or next few months? I guess I'm asking is, does it need to be an all-in decision, or can there be incremental progress? Like, why are you just doing these temporary patches right now and the work is kind of throwaway versus it being incrementally growing towards a more stable state?
I guess these small patches and all of this gluing here and there, instead of like actually fixing the underlying problem, is done right now because it's impossible to do a quick fix for those things. Because like for the things that we have been talking about, those are really about really base level things, like the operating systems themselves, the Kubernetes version where stuff is running on itself, the Helm version, the whole Jenkins itself. Like all of those things are in a pretty horrible state, right? And to get rid of a lot of these patching and gluing that we have right now, we have to build a stable basis where we can actually rely that the issue is not because, I don't know, the DNS is not working, or is not because hardware is broken, or is not because the cabling is wrong, or is not, like, there's so many things here that could cause the issue, and that we can just get rid of if we really fix this underlying infrastructure thing that we've been talking about for such a long time, and where we started a bit working towards with Joey, and Joey has made a lot of patches in this direction. But it's a gigantic package of work, and gluing on the top layer is not going to cut it. So basically, we would need to stop for a certain amount of time. We would need to take a step back, get a lot of those pieces, and then rebuild a lot of those pieces, automate a lot of the configuration, all of the stuff that we have written in the offer. Incrementally doing that, obviously, it's to a certain point, it's incremental, but the only thing that we are asking for is here to have a certain commitment, because what we don't want to do is like do an incremental change of changing the operating system, for example, which might break some things. That's why we're not doing it right now. And then leaving you with this broken state. We just don't want to do that to anybody, especially not to Joey, because Joey would end up with like a broken system that we partially patched, and then nobody else would be there to help him fix that, right? And we don't want to do that to anybody in this community. So we only want to start this thing if we can actually finish this thing as well. And those will be very fundamental changes in terms of operating system, platform as a service, network configuration itself, the way where stuff is organized. So we cannot just like spend a couple of weeks and then it might be a bit better here or there.
Okay, so I mean, what you're describing is, well, just repeating your last sentence. It does not make sense to just spend a couple of weeks and kind of advance some of the pieces without making an all-in multi-month commitment from your perspective. And it sounds like the group is not ready to make an all-in multi-month commitment. And so, I mean, maybe it makes sense to just stop right now. That there's the release is done. It's been, the group has said it's tested sufficiently. The Zyxel setup, this multicast setup, it's unstable, but it's not required for the release. It seems like this work and this group is kind of getting into a bit of a deadlockish kind of state from what you're saying, Jan, that there is no smaller package or incremental way to make forward progress that makes sense. Is that right?
In large parts, yeah. So as said, we can try to assist you on this time and materials basis with this patching. And obviously, I mean, in the end, I'm happy to charge you for the hours that we spend. I just at the same time want to be honest here and tell you that this is, from our perspective, not the ideal investment, because we're basically patching stuff that we're going to replace later. And if there is the option to actually replace those things, we would like rather go into that direction instead of continue to charge you for hours that are going into the wrong direction. But again, like if the TST decides it's useful to continue the patching for the Zyxel OLT, for example, we can continue that on a time and materials basis. We can provide the on-site support and stuff like that. It's just, I want to be perfectly honest here. I don't just want to earn money with this thing. I would like to advance this whole project and like assist the community here. And I think, if I'm honest, patching those things and applying a bit more glue here and there is not going to help in the long term. And I have a bit of a bad feeling about charging you for doing those things, right?
Well, I appreciate the honesty very much. And and Mahir, you know, what I heard in your voice about the offer and the work is you were implying that it's kind of out of your hands, where that's not my view. I mean, I know that the broadband board is kind of working on this, and you're in those broadband board meetings. But you know, either needs, you know, I mean, what's being presented here is either there's sort of a, you know, a full in reinvest or not in the lab, and obviously the group, the broadband board is it's taking them time to kind of make this decision.
So, Timon,
But
I
from
mean, we're not here the group that decide on the budget or the, you know, investments that should be done. So this is not our thing, I guess. So we need to wait from the board. I mean, we need a direction from them about the offer, etc. They should say that, you know, we will go with this and let's proceed, then we can proceed. Other than that, we cannot take any step forward with the things we're doing. We can stop it.
got it, understood. And then, and it sounds like there isn't then an alternative that you know, for the rest of the month, or for, you know, for the next foreseeable future on a time and materials basis, how to make a worthwhile continued investment. I'm hearing from Jan, it's not really worth it. It sounds like it's not required for the release. You know, it's. I mean, is there an argument here for continuing? You know, with the work that Jan and team are doing?
From my side, no. I mean, after board decided, you know, then we can continue.
So I think from what I'm hearing from everybody here is that, you know, that it does not make sense to continue kind of this patch work investment. You know, I strongly feel like I'd like to see the investment, you know, the full investment into the lab and whatnot too. But we all know that we're kind of going through a transition and whatnot, and that's delaying the decision, complicating the decision, perhaps. Is there anybody else who, you know, I mean, you've been quiet. Anything you want to add? Not here anymore.
So team, this is Serkan talking. So who will be responsible for maintaining the lab that we are deploying our tests? So it's an important lab. It's the only lab that we can run our hardware tests, and there must be a maintainer. So who would be the maintainer of the lab? This is DT's lab, I know, but generally we need somebody's hands in there to fix or change something in the lab.
Yeah, from DT's side, we never committed to do huge or big debugging things or something like that. We can change a cable, we can exchange a splitting device or something like that, or adding an attenuator to a line. So that's easy task we can do, but we don't have resources to maintain it.
But at the time the BISDN team started to work, they tried to fix that some kind of firewall issue, right? And was that in DT's firewall kind of thing, or is it in our ONF's infrastructure? What was the fix? Actually, I'm curious about who were maintaining what and who did the actual fix for accessing the DT's lab.
There's a couple of different things that we had to change initially. So there is not the firewall base. I mean, there's also a firewall, but the firewall from the DT side was not the important one, or was not the one blocking anything. It was the gateway. So basically, there's one central server in this setup which provides the upstream connectivity. And this central gateway server had, so the first thing was it had a broken networking card. The question, like, where does this gateway belong, is a bit of a difficult one, because I guess DT bought it and then somehow gifted it into the rack as the connection point. I mean, there's always this one connection or cable piece where if you want to connect two infrastructures to each other, it belongs to somebody that is not part of the infrastructure. And I guess the gateway here was gifted from DT into the ONF setup and then managed by ONF. And that was the first one where we had to exchange the networking cards, basically fix the configuration. Then the next thing was more about the connection outwards from this gateway. There was an issue with I don't remember exactly anymore. I think like there was a broken configuration on one of the upstream switches or something. It's in the in this report for at the beginning of this offer, basically describing a bit more in detail all the different pieces. But yeah, there were a lot of different steps. So it was not just like one quick fix here and then the DT firewall was the reason why nothing worked or something. It was more like had not been maintained for quite some time. So a lot of different pieces were not synchronized anymore. Like the DHCP server was the wrong one, like, but that was on the configuration side, obviously, in the ONF rack. The DT DHCP server changed, but the ONF rack did not reflect that. The same for the DNS. There was a lot of different pieces that we realigned, changed, repaired, stuff like that.
I see. So I believe what is important here is that all of this stuff is documented or not. If the problem happens again, then the question is who will fix it again. If there is some documentation, maybe somebody from the ONF or community can try to fix it. But if there is no documentation, then we need to start from the scratch.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the biggest things that we did initially was we set up a netbox basically and documented all of the different pieces all the different equipment pieces in the rack and all of the cables between all of the different things. I would love to, I mean, currently BISDN is hosting that. I would definitely, before we stop working here on this time materials, I would love to like give you at least the database dump from it so that you can put it somewhere for documentation. So that somebody else can definitely work with it. I guess the issue at that time, I don't know, if I remember correctly, I think Joey or Dav said that the netbox wasn't working properly, the one from the ONF, but you have a netbox somewhere, I think. So maybe we can try to transfer it there. That should contain most of the documentation that you need to like repair those things. The other things, it's a bit difficult, like we didn't document things that were broken apart from obviously describing that in Jira issues and things like that. And most of the fixes applied right now are exactly those patches and the glue that we talked about, because there was never the priority or the time to fix it properly, right? So instead of doing a proper fix, doing a proper reconfiguration of a couple of things, we just configured it to the point where it worked to the bare minimum so that we can move the release forward. And this is exactly the work that is outstanding, where we would, after the release, fix it properly, get rid of all of these workarounds and glue and patches and all of those things, and fix it properly, document everything, and give it to the community in a way where not only this one lab can basically profit from it, but you can basically do the same thing in another lab if you want to. You can have another community lab somewhere else. You can replicate those things. A big part of the offer, I guess, is automation. So yeah, there's definitely this target to do that. But so far, the priority given by the TST has not been to do that, but to work towards the release.
I see. Thanks, John.
So on just Can you confirm you're hearing me? I was having a weird system problem. Anybody hear me?
Yeah, I
I
can.
can.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Sorry. So, I'll start to directly answer your question. At the end, after the end of the month, starting February 1st, I think there needs to be the presumption that there's no more work going on in the lab, nor is there a team supporting it. It's done, and it will probably die on the vine unless you, as a TST, I think honestly, the only hope for keeping it going right now is to make a case to the broadband board to explain the status and explain, if you want it to continue, to push for investment to get it to continue. So I hear in your voice and your response that you're resigned that it's out of your hands. But I don't think that the broadband board has heard a compelling request from the TST to keep it going, frankly. And I think without that, I think it's really unlikely that the board will continue to invest. Or right now, at least there's I would say Deutsche Telekom and Radisys are wanting to continue the investment, but that Czech Telecom and Netzi are pushing back against making that investment at the board level, or at least questioning the value of making the investment. And so, I think that, here, it's not here right now, but, I don't know if you would agree with me, but I think that, the TST is in a position to make a case if you choose to do so. But if you don't choose to do so, then I think it's BASDN is going to stop working on it in all likelihood. I'm going to be leaving in the position at ONF. Everybody here knows that the project's going through a transition. The board is talking about hiring a new executive director and is getting that in process. But there is likely to be a gap period while new leadership is being recruited, and the strategic plan around the whole project and around investment in this lab is being reconsidered. So I'm just trying to be as honest and frank as I can be. And, and this is the push come to shove moment, really. And whether it's, whether the TST feels strongly about investing in the lab or not, I think that's really up to you guys. Any comments? Any questions?
No, Simon. No comments. I get your points, but no comments. I mean, we only the only thing I can say that we prepared the report about that, the needs of the lab and needs of the resources for maintaining a lab, and we will give this report to board. And during the meetings, and we will see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Mahir, if the TST were to make a impassioned case to the board, I think that could change everything. I mean, I haven't been hearing that, and I don't know if you've been doing anything in back channels or whatnot, but I don't know that the board really has a strong understanding of what's going on, or what the TST or the more technical members of the community would prefer to see here. And then, in the absence of that, I think that can lead to apathy, or it's easy for them to think that the investment in the lab doesn't make sense if they're not seeing people, fight for it or explain why it's needed. So.
Yeah, that's all that we can say. Why do we need this lab? I mean, what are we doing with this lab? And which resources or what kinds of investments we need for this lab? Other than that, strategically having this lab and, you know, fulfilling these resource requirements and, you know, spending budgets in this direction, this all, you know, the decisions of the board, not ours. Okay. I think we will give this clear view to board. We verbally did this on the meetings, but we will do also this with a document also.
Yeah, I think that would be smart to do.
And maybe just a quick thing to add to my answer towards Serkant also, like at least for the next 2 weeks, I guess we currently agreed on time materials until the end of the month. If there is the need for on-site support or anything, or like checking something, and the same goes towards Mahir with the debugging of the Zyxel OLT, we're happy to do that, right? So I'm not saying we want to like leave you here and run away. I just wanted to make very clear that we also don't want to sell you anything that we think might not help you in the long term, because especially after the release, there might now be the time to think a bit about like, what is the priority, what is the focus. But still, definitely, if anybody needs hands-on support, if anybody needs like debugging help here and there, if we can assist here, we're happy to assist. We agreed on like continuing time materials until the end of the month, and we're happy to do that.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate, you know, just having this frank discussion and trying to help this group navigate through this inflection. I mean, it's a bit of an odd transition, you know, disruptive transition. And so, you know, apologies for that, but hopefully, you know, hopefully this group really can get to a better, more stable state. I mean, I guess with the longer term strategy established and kind of the investment profile established. This is a hard, I guess, a hard moment for the group. So it's the top of the hour. I need to drop, but any, you know, I kind of hate dropping right on this note. Any other questions or comments?
Not from my side.
All right. Well, good seeing everybody. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. See you.
Thank you. Bye.